What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you an overview of what is happening to Lucid, go over some of the data points, go over the latest report that talks on EVs and the stats, and basically puts in perspective on why we are investing in Lucid. So I'm going to go over all that. Make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So currently it's for the most part flat. It did have a sell-off first thing down to $6.39. So it's kind of trading within the technical range because as of right now, there actually isn't any SEC filings, no press releases, nothing like that. So it is just a lot of people trying to digest the technicals and just where things might be going from here. So I'm going to touch on that. But I want to start off with some pretty positive news, and that is the 13F. So it is that time of season, once again, where a lot of institutions are disclosing their positions to the SEC. And it looks like right here, good old Vanguard did increase their position by 25.85%. So they do now have 73.1 million shares of Lucid. That's absolutely huge. And of course, their counterpart BlackRock are going to be disclosing their position most likely within the next couple days, similarly with the PIF. So I think that's definitely going to be a fairly positive thing, although we already do know the PIF did increase their position. On a side note, it does seem kind of small, but 1.1 million shares. But Deutsche Bank, they've definitely been very bearish on the EV sector, saying that it's a bubble and stuff like that. But in Q2, they did increase their position by 109.21%. So I'm pretty impressed by this, even though, like I said, it's kind of minor. Let me know you guys' thoughts on Vanguard increasing their position, and do you think that, for instance, BlackRock will kind of follow suit in that regard? But when it comes down to it, obviously a lot of these institutions are investing in the whole EV sector because it has been severely just suppressed for quite some time, in fact. So I'll give you guys a good overview of all that. So based on this, so this is the latest, looks like report that did come out for July 2023, on which it talks on EV sales on a global level and kind of goes over each separate region as well. But on a global scale, in June of 2023, which of course is part of their July report, all EV sales are up 38% year over year. That is absolutely huge. Europe is up 42%, China up 28%, and the US is up 38%. And total right now, the market share for EVs is 9% in the States. So that is absolutely huge. And this is exactly why myself, I'm sure a lot of others, invest in Lucid, because they are trying to target all of these areas that have a massive amount of demand. And as well, just looking generally at this chart that I did have up right here. So this does have up until 2022. This is a little bit more of a breakdown based on, I think this is from Bloomberg, but based on the region. So China is huge and similar to Europe. And I feel like with Lucid's footprint, for instance, in North America, which generally in comparison is growing at a little bit more of a faster rate, but I do feel that will very much help Lucid bigger picture, and especially with Saudi Arabia, which will be able to kind of ship to a lot of these local areas. So Europe will be able to have easy access to, similar to China. So I think the Saudi factory is going to be absolutely epic and critical for Lucid's expansion. But once again, a lot of institutions do invest in Lucid because of this mere point. As well, when you are looking at fair market values, the latest Morningstar report does put Lucid at $8.91. Once again, this is just more of an estimate. I'm not a financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. And when it comes down to any latest analyst ratings, there hasn't really been anything. I already talked on the last 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 one that came in on August the 11th, and they kind of for the most part followed Morgan Stanley's $5 rating, as you can kind of see based on tip ranks. So Morgan Stanley $5 rating, that was done 5 days ago, and then James Beccario with 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗖𝗧 $5 rating once again. If you do like a lot of this information though, take a look at Interactive Brokers in the description below. It is completely free to have all of this information, so take advantage of that while you can. But when it comes down to some of the other data points, starting off with options activity, today there is a grand total of $700,000 in call premiums being purchased versus 521,000 in puts. So clearly based on this, a little bit more of a evenly dividedness. But I do feel that, especially based on the amount of calls, it is still anticipated to continue to trend up. And based on this, So this is all the calls. So a grid view of that shows expiry dates, the strike prices. It is anticipated for this upcoming week to go and settle between around the $7 to $8 range based on this and the volume. Once again, options activity is just merely a sentiment, whether it be this or this, so it doesn't necessarily move the stock price. So just be aware of that. As far as big money getting in on the secondary market, the frequency is down a little bit today, but you do see a fairly good one first thing, so $2.37 million, but majority of these are a buy, and you can tell that based on the bid, the ask, and the selling price at the time. So once again, I see that as a fairly positive thing. Oddly enough, the dark pool is very quiet today. Dark pool, very much linked to shorting, so people don't like it, but the fact that it is only at one transaction is kind of abnormal. So I'll give you guys a quick overview of what is happening with shorts and all the other fun jazz. So right now, short score is currently 74, utilization is 83.77%. And just to put it in perspective, just on how big shorts are kind of an influence on Lucid, there's a grand total of $1.29 billion worth of shorts right now. But outside of that, just quickly moving on, right now shorts are increasing 281,000 shares. So they kind of aren't really committing on either direction, because 281,000 shares is a kind of a big drop in the bucket in comparison to what they do have, because right now there's 194.83 million shares overall are being shorted. 23.54% of the free float is being shorted. So that has gone up since the Q2 earnings. So people clearly are doubling down or kind of increasing their short position, which is just very questionable. Like I've said in the past, it just doesn't make sense. There's a lot of companies that don't produce anything, but they have a lower short interest. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But once again though, as I've said, having the PIF behind you to support, having Big Brother there, I think that's very reassuring. As well, just generally looking at a lot of the fib levels is pretty widespread there. So there's going to be a lot of volatility. So in the short term, don't necessarily worry about the price so much. You have to think bigger picture. So for instance, going back over here, looking at a lot of the stats and even just generally North America, I was kind of surprised by that. So a 38% increase year over year and a 9% market share. That is exactly the kind of stats that you want to look at, and why you are investing in the future, bigger picture, and why Vanguard, a lot of other institutions are increasing their position in Lucid. So once again, I know it's very advantageous to always try and catch the bottom per se, but when you are investing in Lucid, just think bigger picture. That's kind of the way to go, and that's exactly why you do see, for instance, Vanguard increasing their position. So let me know you guys' thoughts on that, and as well, when it comes down to shorts, do you think shorts are ever going to get squeezed out of Lucid? And if so, what do you think the catalyst would be to really prompt that? Because like I've indicated in the past, for a short squeeze to occur, you need a fairly high cost to borrow, you need a lot of shares being shorted, a high utilization, and then you need a surprise catalyst. It can't be something that we all generally know, because of course, with that kind of aspect, shorts can kind of start to close out some of their positions in anticipation of something big coming. So it has to be completely out of left field, something completely as a surprise. So what do you think could that be? So I do personally feel that the Saudi Arabia facility kicking off in September and potentially having a higher demand or a higher output than what was previously forecast, I feel like that might be a good surprise catalyst. But once again, I'm not a financial advisor. When it comes down to everything else, like I talked on, so with it being at $6.68, it is currently between this S2 and the S1. So $6.43 is a very strong support, kind of bounced off of that as far as the low, and $6.85 is that next big resistance. And of course, that kind of is around that 50-day moving average. And as I've explained to you guys many times, that 50-day moving average and Lucid kind of are enemies a little bit. So once it does get above that 50-day moving average, generally it goes on a very nice rally. So once again, a lot of points to watch for. I do feel that bigger things might be coming. And as far as looking right here, number of retail investors as well are getting in today. Still does have a bearish sentiment behind the scenes right now though, but it is at 43, so kind of neutral. But I do feel, like I said, bigger things might be coming. Let me know you guys' thoughts on Lucid in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And as I've shared with you in the past, even though Lucid goes up, down, sideways, take advantage of some free shares, and that is with Moomoo, completely free to open up an account. But if you throw $100 at the account, you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000, and you also get a $50 cash reward. So this in among itself is a complete win-win. This is only for Americans on an FYI, so just so you guys are aware. but Canada is eventually getting Moomoo, I think in October, so you can kind of sign up for a pre-launch just to look at a lot of the charts and use their app. All you need to do to sign up is just use a phone number, no other information whatsoever, and then you can kind of sign up to get some, or at least they're giving some giveaways for some, I guess, gift cards and stuff like that. So take advantage of that, whether you are American or Canadian. So once again, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.